I've been your most devoted fan for as long as I can remember. Today I'm excited to share a special story with you. Have you ever had something unexpected happen that changed your life in ways you couldn't have imagined? My name is Hadra, and a few years ago, I experienced something that left me forever scarred. It happened on August 13th, 2021 at 2:45 a.m. It was a scorching summer night. The only lights in the room were the glow of my laptop and the moonlight streaming through the window. My sister and I were pulling an all-nighter, while our younger sister was dead asleep on the bed. Our room had a queen mattress and a bunk bed. My sister was sleeping on the bottom bunk, while my twin sister and I were lying on the queen mattress, eating Cheetos and watching a movie. Suddenly, my stomach dropped, and I got this awful, sinking feeling. I felt nauseous, like something was out of place. Naturally, I turned to my twin and said,
"Hey, I'm getting this weird feeling, like something is wrong."
She stared at me, dumbfounded, before replying,
"It's almost 3 a.m. Go to bed. You're probably just paranoid."
but I couldn't shake the feeling. "You know what? I'm going to check," I said. There was a moment of silence between us. The only sounds were the soft hum of the fan and our little sister's gentle snores. Then my twin sister burst into laughter. Passive-aggressively, I hit back, saying,
"If I die, my blood is on your hands."
I slowly tiptoed down the stairs, careful not to turn on any lights so I wouldn't wake my parents. My anxiety was rising and adrenaline was coursing through my veins as I began checking the living room. Everything seemed fine, so I made my way to the kitchen. I felt like the main character in a horror movie, convinced there was a secret camera recording my every move. Still, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then, I got this sudden, unshakable urge to check the backyard. Arming myself with a water gun, I decided that if I encounter an intruder, I'd act like it was a real gun, complete with sound effects. In my mind, this was the best idea ever. As I reached for the door handle, exhaustion began to set in. I told myself,
"Hajra, it's 3 a.m. Maybe you're just being paranoid. Go back to sleep."
I hesitated for a moment, thinking I should trust my instincts, but ultimately shrugged off the feeling and cautiously made my way back to my room. Once back, I wrote everything down in my diary, while my sister teased me mercilessly. The next day at lunch, my family and I were eating together when my mom said something that made my blood run cold. Shivers went down my spine, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Our house has cameras at the front and back doors, and she told me that on the footage from the previous night, there was a man, probably in his 30s, who had walked up to the back door and tried to open it. I asked her what time it happened, and she said it was around 2:45 a.m., which is right when I had gone downstairs. To this day, I still wonder what would have happened if I had opened that door. How would things have ended? What I learned from this experience is to always trust your gut feeling and never, ever open the door at 3 a.m.
This happened a few years ago. My parents were out of town to attend a wedding, and I was home alone. I decided to invite a friend over. Her name is Maya, and she lived on a street behind mine. I called her and asked if she could come over to my house, and she agreed. I got up and started preparing snacks and tea for us. About 20 minutes later, I heard the doorbell ring. It rang over and over, as if the person was in a rush. As I reached the door, I asked, "Who is there?" It was Maya. When I opened the door, she rushed inside. She looked terrified. I could see she was shaking and out of breath. I took her inside and gave her a glass of water. Then I asked her what was wrong. She told me that while she was walking to my house, she said she saw a man staring at her and smiling. She felt uneasy, ignored him, and continued walking. After a few steps, she looked back to see if the man was still there, and he was following her. She rushed to my house, hoping to get away from the man. When she reached my front door and looked around, the man was gone. I comforted her, saying that she was safe now that she was inside my house. We had our tea, ate our snacks, and talked about school, movies, and other stuff. After a while, we got hungry and ordered a pizza. Then we watched Netflix. About half an hour later, my doorbell rang. I assumed it was the pizza delivery guy, so I went to the door and asked, "Who is there?" The voice on the other side responded, "Pizza delivery, ma'am." I was about to open the door, but my friend shouted from upstairs like a maniac. She rushed downstairs, screaming at me to not open the door. I froze. She grabbed my hand and pulled me upstairs into my room, locking the door behind us. I asked her what was going on, and she told me she had been looking out the window. It was the same man who had been following her earlier, standing at the door. I was shaken. I immediately called the police. While we waited, we heard someone banging on the door and screaming for us to open it. All we could do was sit and cry. A few moments later, we heard police sirens. When we went outside, the man had been caught. Later that day, the police informed us they had found the body of a pizza delivery man who had been stabbed to death. The man at the door had planned to murder us too. Till this day, I think about what could have happened if my friend hadn't seen the man outside. It's possible I wouldn't be alive to tell you this story.
This happened to me when I was about 10 years old. My family and I were on vacation, and we traveled to our destination by train. My relatives live in a different state, and we decided to take the train to go there since we were middle class and didn't want to spend a lot of money on plane tickets. Once we reached the station, we grabbed our stuff and got off the train. As we were walking down the platform, out of nowhere, this weird guy came up to us with a large smile on his face. He was one of those people who help you carry your luggage from the station to your cab and charge a fee. He stood in front of us and asked if we wanted help with our luggage. My dad politely told him no. My dad and my older sister were busy trying to book a cab to take us from the station to my relative's house. The man didn't give up. He kept standing there and watching us. I figured it was a tactic to keep standing there to make you uncomfortable so you'll just accept his help and pay him. But something was very weird about this guy. He didn't seem like he was just hoping to convince us. He kept staring at me, and all of a sudden, he started touching my hair with his muddy hand, the whole time with that wide smile. At first, I just smiled and hid behind my mom. Often, people would warmly touch my hair because I was considered a very attractive boy for a 10-year-old. At least that's what my family thought. I assumed he did it to make us agree to take his help, but boy oh boy was I wrong. After touching me once, he immediately touched my hair again, and my mother calmly told him to back off. He didn't move an inch and just stood there. My dad and sister didn't notice what was happening because they were still busy on the phone booking the cab. My mom and I moved closer to them, but the creepy guy, still smiling, came closer again and started touching my hair and petting me. This time, my dad saw what was happening and how uncomfortable I was and screamed at him to cut it out. The weird guy looked skinny, and my dad could have easily taken him down, but my dad isn't the kind of person to even harm a mosquito. Even after my dad screamed at him with rage, the guy only moved back a few steps, still smiling, and then again started petting me. I tried to push his hand away, but I wasn't very strong, and his grip was firm. I couldn't believe that someone so skinny could have such a strong grip. My dad saw me struggling against him and decided we needed to get away from the man, so he pushed him, and we all started speed walking toward the station exit. I looked back to check if the creepy guy was following us, and to my relief, he stayed where he was, but he was smiling even bigger than before, even after being pushed and falling down. The station was very busy, but nobody even seemed to notice him. That part scared the heck out of me in particular, but my entire family was creeped out by the experience. Now I'm 18, and I barely remember this incident actually happening. Since my parents have told me about it a few times, I remember it more as a story, but even though I don't fully, I think this experience has made me feel subconsciously nervous about speaking to strangers, especially people who do physical labor and certain shopkeepers. But I'm working on myself to overcome this. We should have reported him to the police, but my family felt that we were saved by God's grace. They didn't want to have any further contact with him or even see his creepy face again. I still don't know what his intentions were with me, but I'm grateful that my family is so protective and always has my back.